At its narrowest point, the Strait of Hormuz is only 33 kilometers wide, narrower than the distance from central London to Heathrow Airport. Yet through this small stretch of water, about 21% of the world's oil passes every single day. It is the most dangerous choke point on the planet. Every 6 minutes, a VLCC tanker carrying 2 million barrels quietly moves through this strait. Within 24 hours, more than 20 giant ships line up in sequence, carrying oil from Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, Iraq, and the UAE toward East Asia and Europe. There is no alternative route capable of handling this scale. The U.S. Fifth Fleet, based in Bahrain, exists for one primary mission: to ensure Hormuz never closes. The annual cost exceeds $60 billion. This is the hidden price behind every liter of gasoline you pump. An armed security fee that never appears on the receipt. Since 2019, Iran has attacked, seized, or harassed more than 20 oil tankers in the Gulf. Each time Iran tests missiles near Hormuz, global oil markets react within hours. Iran does not actually need to close the strait. The threat alone is enough. Every captain passing through Hormuz knows the unwritten rules. Never switch off the AIS tracking system, never leave the 3-mile shipping corridor, and always stay in contact with the U.S. Navy. A single mistake in these waters is not just an accident, it could become an international incident. Over the next 40 minutes, we will follow the journey of a single barrel of crude oil. From 4,000 meters beneath the Arabian Desert, through this dangerous strait, through the fires of a refinery, and finally into the fuel powering your car this morning.
Crude oil is not made from dinosaurs, as many people believe. It comes from trillions of microscopic marine organisms, algae, bacteria, and plankton, that accumulated on the ocean floor over 350 million years. Every barrel of oil burned today represents 350 million years of stored solar energy. Under pressures of hundreds of atmospheres and temperatures above 100 degrees Celsius, organic molecules are slowly cooked over tens of millions of years in a process known as catagenesis. The result is a dense black liquid mixture of hydrocarbons with immense energy content. A single barrel of oil contains the equivalent of roughly 25,000 hours of human labor.
Oil does not sit in giant underground lakes as often portrayed in movies. Instead, it fills microscopic pores inside sandstone and limestone formations, trapped beneath impermeable rock layers above. Finding the perfect geological trap beneath deserts or deep oceans is a billion-dollar scientific challenge. Before drilling even a single well, oil companies spend hundreds of millions of dollars on 3D seismic surveys. They send sound waves deep into the seabed and record the echoes returning to the surface. Supercomputers then reconstruct detailed underground maps, identifying potential oil traps more than 4,000 meters below. Saudi Aramco controls the world's second-largest proven oil reserves, about 267 billion barrels.
The Ghawar field alone, operating since 1948, has produced more than 70 billion barrels and still pumps around 3.8 million barrels every day. It remains the largest oil field ever discovered in human history. Venezuela holds the largest proven oil reserves on Earth, about 304 billion barrels. Yet, because of political turmoil and years of underinvestment, its production in 2026 is only about 900,000 barrels per day, barely a fraction of its potential. Oil is not just geology, it is politics, money, and power. Drilling an offshore oil well can cost between $50 and $200 million. On land, the costs are lower, but the environment can be just as harsh. In Saudi Arabia's Rub al Khali Desert, ground temperatures can exceed 70 degrees Celsius. Yet drilling crews continue working around the clock. Modern drill bits are made from tungsten carbide alloys, about 5 times harder than ordinary steel. They rotate at speeds of 60 to 100 revolutions per minute, crushing solid rock and advancing 10 to 30 meters per hour. Reaching an oil reservoir 4,000 meters underground can take 30 to 90 days of continuous drilling. Drilling fluid, known in the industry simply as mud, is a mixture of bentonite, barite, and specialized chemicals. It cools the drill bit, carries rock fragments back to the surface, and most importantly, maintains pressure to prevent sudden oil or gas blowouts that could destroy the entire rig. MWD technology allows engineers to see what is happening 4,000 meters underground in real time. Sensors near the drill bit transmit data to the surface through pressure pulses in the drilling fluid. The transmission speed is only a few bytes per second, but it is enough to prevent catastrophic mistakes. Horizontal drilling became a quiet revolution in the oil industry. Instead of drilling straight down, the drill bit can turn sideways and travel along the oil-bearing rock layer, increasing the contact area up to 10 times. This technology helped turn the United States into the world's largest oil producer, starting in 2018. Hydraulic fracturing, or fracking, injects high-pressure fluid to fracture shale rock deep underground. This technique reshaped the global energy map. Thanks to fracking, the United States produced about 13.2 million barrels of oil per day in 2026, more than Saudi Arabia, dramatically altering global energy geopolitics. The moment when oil first reaches the surface, known in the industry as first oil, is one of the most powerful moments in industrial work. After hundreds of millions of dollars in investment and years of waiting, the thick, black crude rises as a reward from deep underground. But this is only the beginning of the journey. The nodding donkey pump jack is perhaps the most recognizable symbol of the oil industry. Its mechanism is surprisingly simple. A motor drives the beam up and down, while a piston at the bottom of the well lifts crude oil to the surface. A single pump jack can produce between 20 and 500 barrels per day, often operating continuously for more than 30 years. An FPSO, floating production, storage, and offloading vessel, represents the pinnacle of offshore oil technology. It functions as a floating refinery, a storage tank holding up to 2.2 million barrels, and a small floating city for about 200 workers. In 2025, Saudi Aramco launched the Margin 1 FPSO, adding roughly 600,000 barrels per day of capacity, one of the largest oil projects of the decade. In deep water fields such as Johann Castberg in the Arctic, the entire production system sits on the seafloor, nearly 400 meters below the surface, without traditional drilling platforms. Everything is remotely controlled using robots, automated valves, and fiber optic communication lines. Humans never directly touch the wellhead. Saudi Aramco operates more than 300 oil and gas fields, with over 3,000 wells running simultaneously. All of them are monitored from a central control room in Dhahran. Each well transmits data every 5 seconds, including pressure, flow rate, temperature, and water content. If something unusual occurs, the AI monitoring system can trigger alerts within 30 seconds. After decades of production, natural reservoir pressure begins to decline, and wells slow down or stop flowing. The solution is secondary recovery, injecting water or carbon dioxide into the reservoir to maintain pressure and push oil toward the wells. At the Galwar field, Aramco injects about 7 million barrels of seawater every day to produce roughly 3.8 million barrels of oil, nearly a 2-to-1 water-to-oil ratio. Kashagan is one of the most technically challenging oil fields on Earth. Its crude contains about 19% hydrogen sulfide, an extremely toxic gas, and production occurs under high pressure, with winter temperatures dropping below -35 degrees Celsius. Development costs exceeded $55 billion, making it one of the most expensive oil projects ever built. Yet, its estimated reserves of around 9 billion barrels make the effort worthwhile. There are more than 3.5 million kilometers of oil and gas pipelines across the world, enough to circle the Earth 87 times. These pipelines are the invisible arteries of modern civilization, running beneath deserts, mountains, and icy seas. Operating continuously 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. The Baku-Tbilisi-Ceyhan pipeline was designed as a geopolitical solution, transporting oil from the Caspian Sea to the Mediterranean without crossing Russia or Iran. 3 countries, 2 mountain ranges, 1 pipeline. A reminder that oil often forces nations to cooperate even when they would rather not. The Trans-Alaska Pipeline carries oil from Prudhoe Bay on the Arctic Ocean to the port of Valdez in southern Alaska. It crosses 800 rivers, 3 mountain ranges, and vast areas of permafrost. To prevent melting the frozen ground, the pipeline is elevated on 78,000 support columns, allowing cold air to circulate beneath it. Ras Tanura can export up to 6.5 million barrels of oil per day, roughly equal to Iraq's entire production. Each VLCC leaving the port carries about 2 million barrels of crude, worth more than $220 million at 2026 oil prices. It is one of the most important ports on Earth that most people have never heard of.
A VLCC can carry about 320,000 tons of crude oil, stored in roughly 30 separate tanks to maintain balance and reduce spill risks. Fully loaded, the vessel draws about 22 meters of water, meaning it can only enter specially designed deep-water ports or transfer cargo offshore using floating pipeline systems. The shipping lanes of the Strait of Hormuz function like a highway at sea. Incoming vessels follow the right-hand lane near Oman, while outbound ships travel along the opposite lane closer to Iran, separated by a buffer zone. In such a narrow corridor, precise navigation is essential.
At the narrowest point of Hormuz, only about 33 kilometers across, tankers typically slow down and increase visual monitoring. Heavy traffic combined with military activity in the region means navigation here always requires extreme caution. Jamnagar, operated by Reliance Industries in India, is the largest oil refinery on Earth, processing about 1.24 million barrels per day. Its complex covers an area larger than the central city of Mumbai. The energy required to run it rivals that of a small nation, all to transform crude oil into fuel, plastics, and chemicals.
Crude oil is not a single uniform liquid. It is a complex mixture of hundreds of different hydrocarbons, ranging from light gases like methane to heavy, tar-like bitumen. Light sweet crude from Libya behaves very differently from the heavy sour crude of Venezuela, and refineries must adjust their processes accordingly. Oil refining relies on the different boiling points of hydrocarbons. At around 370 degrees Celsius, heavy fuel oil remains at the bottom. Around 250 degrees Celsius, diesel condenses in the middle. Around 150 degrees Celsius, kerosene forms. Around 70 degrees Celsius, gasoline emerges. At the top of the tower, light gases such as LPG are collected. One distillation column can produce many different products.
Catalytic cracking breaks large hydrocarbon molecules into smaller, more useful ones, using heat and chemical catalysts. This process converts heavy crude fractions into lighter fuels like gasoline. Without cracking technology, much of crude oil would remain as low-value heavy fuel.
A modern refinery runs continuously, 24 hours a day throughout the year, shutting down only for maintenance every few years. Even small deviations in temperature or pressure can trigger dangerous chain reactions. That is why teams of engineers constantly monitor thousands of parameters at the same time.
From a single 159-liter barrel of crude oil, refineries produce multiple products, such as gasoline, diesel, jet fuel, LPG, and heating oil. The remaining fractions are used to create asphalt, wax, and lubricants. Nearly every part of the barrel is utilized.
Not all crude oil is burned as fuel. A significant portion becomes petrochemicals and plastics used in products such as bottles, polyester clothing, electronics, and fertilizers. As electric vehicles expand, the share of oil used for petrochemicals is growing rapidly. Gas flaring burns excess gases produced during refining to keep systems safe. Globally, this practice releases hundreds of millions of tons of carbon dioxide each year. Although controversial, flaring remains an essential safety valve to prevent potentially catastrophic explosions.
OPEC Plus consists of 23 countries that collectively control roughly half of the world's oil production. A single meeting in Vienna can influence gasoline prices in nearly every nation, affect inflation for billions of people, and shape the growth of the global economy. Few organizations on Earth concentrate this level of economic power.
In 2020, the price of WTI crude briefly fell below zero for the first time in history as the COVID pandemic collapsed demand and storage facilities filled up. Just 2 years later, prices surged to $139 during the disruption caused by the Russia-Ukraine war. Few commodities experience volatility as dramatic as crude oil. Saudi Aramco is the largest oil company in the world. In 2022, its market value exceeded $2 trillion, and it recorded profits of around $161 billion, one of the largest corporate earnings figures ever reported. That wealth ultimately comes from the vast oil reserves beneath the Arabian Desert. Nigeria produces roughly 1.5 million barrels of oil per day, yet millions of its citizens continue to face economic hardship. Many researchers describe this situation as part of the resource curse, where large natural resources do not always translate into balanced economic development. In recent years, energy companies have faced increasing legal and social pressure related to climate change. Court rulings and environmental campaigns have pushed major oil companies to reconsider their long-term strategies and emissions targets.
Much of the oil traded in financial markets today does not involve the physical movement of crude. Futures contracts and other derivatives allow investors to buy and sell rights to oil deliveries in the future, creating a vast financial ecosystem built around energy markets.
China is currently the world's largest oil importer. The scale of its demand plays a major role in global energy trade and significantly influences international oil transportation routes. By 2026, renewable energy provides roughly 35% of the world's electricity, about twice the share recorded in 2015. Yet oil still accounts for around 31% of humanity's total primary energy supply. Two energy systems now exist side by side, and the balance between them will shape the future of the planet's climate.
Electric vehicles are expanding rapidly worldwide. However, lithium-ion batteries require metals such as lithium, cobalt, and nickel mined in different parts of the world. This illustrates that the energy transition is not only about new technology, but also about shifting global resource supply chains.
Certain sectors such as aviation, maritime transport, and petrochemicals still rely heavily on high-energy density liquid fuels. For example, a long-haul wide-body aircraft flight can require hundreds of tons of fuel. This makes fully replacing oil in these sectors technically challenging. Global climate conferences increasingly focus on reducing emissions and accelerating the energy transition. Yet balancing energy demand, economic growth, and climate targets remains one of the major challenges of the 21st century. Many oil-producing countries are now investing heavily in renewable energy and emerging technologies. Large solar and hydrogen projects in the Middle East illustrate how oil economies are preparing for a more diversified energy future.
Around the world, hundreds of thousands of inactive oil wells require proper sealing and environmental management. Addressing these legacy sites is an important part of the energy transition, helping reduce methane leaks and environmental risks. Some traditional refineries are being converted to produce biofuels, hydrogen, and other new energy products. In many cases, old infrastructure and emerging technologies operate side by side during the transition period. This 33-kilometer-wide strait is not geographically dramatic. There are no towering cliffs or waterfalls, just a narrow strip of water connecting two seas. Yet more than 1/5 of the world's traded oil passes through it, and its stability depends on a fragile balance among global powers. Crude oil often travels across oceans, pipelines, and refineries before it becomes fuel in a vehicle's tank. The journey of a single liter of gasoline may span thousands of kilometers and connect multiple economies around the world. Oil is deeply embedded in daily life across modern societies. From transportation and agriculture to manufacturing and logistics, it has become a foundational energy source, supporting many global systems. Every day, the world consumes more than 100 million barrels of oil. It is a resource formed over hundreds of millions of years, yet often used within just hours or days. From space, Earth shows no pipelines, tankers, or drilling rigs. Only a small blue planet suspended in a vast universe. Yet beneath its surface lies the energy resource that helped shape modern civilization. Every day, each of us indirectly uses oil in countless ways. The real question is not simply whether the world can reduce its dependence on oil, but how the next global energy system will be built.